Adam Butler wants to stay with the Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders defensive tackle Adam Butler is currently a free agent, but he's made one thing clear: he wants to stay in Vegas. Earlier today, Butler appeared on a podcast and openly expressed his desire to return to the Raiders. He even called it a dream come true and said he loves the team and the organization. If you're the Raiders front office, this is a move you have to consider. Over the past few seasons, Butler has consistently improved. Last season, he ranked as a top 12 run defender in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. While he may not be the kind of nose tackle who takes on double teams, he's been a playmaker against the run and also ranked in the top 15 for sacks and quarterback hits among defensive tackles. Even if the Raiders bring Butler back, they still need to add depth at defensive tackle. We'll discuss some of the top prospects in this year's draft later. But for now, the focus is on Butler. With his strong performance and clear commitment to the team, the Raiders should do everything they can to bring him back. The Raiders' defensive line needs to stay together. One of the biggest things we didn't get to see last season was the Raiders' defensive line reaching its full potential. We had Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz, and Adam Butler, who had a solid year. Coming into the season, the expectation was that this unit could be one of the best in the league. But things didn't quite come together. Now, the hope is that the Raiders can keep this group intact heading into next season. Butler is a free agent, so bringing him back is crucial. He would likely be a more affordable option compared to Malcolm Butler, and despite being 30 years old, he still has plenty left in the tank. Unlike some players who enter the league at 20 or 21, Butler developed later and didn't play as many snaps early in his career. That means he's still fresh and performing at a high level. What makes Butler valuable is his elite pass rushing ability. He's quick, explosive, and a nightmare in one-on-one matchups. If a team like the Chargers focuses its protection on Crosby and Wilkins, using tight ends and running backs to chip block, Butler gets a one-on-one matchup inside. And he can win those battles, even against top interior linemen like Joe Thuney and Trey Smith. Another important factor? Butler actually wants to stay. That's not something every player says. We've seen free agents come and go, and even homegrown talent like Josh Jacobs chose to leave despite getting the same offer from the Raiders as he did from the Packers. But Butler has made it clear he loves this team and wants to be here. For the Raiders, keeping a high-character, high-impact player like Butler should be a priority. Las Vegas Raiders, the defensive line. Question: one of the biggest things we didn't really get to see last season with the Las Vegas Raiders was the full potential of the defensive line. We knew the talent was there. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz, and Adam Butler, who had already proven himself the year before. On paper, this group had the potential to be elite. But here's the thing: we never really saw them all come together. Injuries, rotations, and different circumstances kept them from reaching their full potential. Now, heading into next season, the question is, can the Raiders finally put this unit together? A key piece to that puzzle is Adam Butler. He's a pending free agent, and the Raiders need to decide if they'll bring him back. It's a no-brainer. He's an elite pass rusher who wins one-on-one battles inside. If you watch his film, you'll see him dominate against top-tier offensive linemen like Joe Thuney and Trey Smith. His speed, explosiveness, and technique make him a nightmare to block. Butler isn't just another player. He actually wants to be in Vegas. That's rare. We've seen talented players come and go. Just look at Josh Jacobs. The Raiders matched Green Bay's offer, but he still chose to leave. Not every player buys into the team long-term. Butler does. I've personally talked to him through social media, and he's made it clear he loves being a Raider. The 2025 NFL draft factor now: if the Raiders don't bring Butler back, what's the plan? The 2025 NFL draft has some intriguing defensive tackles, and with the 6th overall pick, the Raiders have options. Some experts believe this is the best DT class in years. Names like Mason Graham keep coming up as a top 3 pick. But is he really worth the hype? I'm not so sure. When I watch his tape, I don't see a generational talent like Jalen Carter, who had elite pass rush moves and technique. Graham is strong, no doubt. But in the NFL, everyone is strong. Strength alone won't make him dominant at the next level. If the Raiders go DT in the second round, there's one name I love: Deion Walker from Kentucky. He's the perfect fit for Vegas. With Christian Wilkins locked in at the 3 technique, the Raiders need a nose tackle, a guy who can eat up double teams from centers and guards. Walker fits that role perfectly. The bottom line: the Raiders have a chance to build an elite defensive line, but it starts with making the right moves. Do they re-sign Butler? Do they draft a defensive tackle early? Or do they go in a completely different direction? Whatever happens, one thing is clear: this defensive front could be special. The pieces are there. It's just a matter of putting them together. Raiders defensive tackle situation and 2025 NFL draft prospects. Adam Butler isn't just a guy collecting a paycheck. He wants to be great. Not every player in the NFL has that mindset. Even Cam Newton once pointed out that some guys only care about the money. But Butler is different, and the Raiders should strongly consider bringing him back. That said, let's take a look at the 2025 NFL Draft and the defensive tackles who could be on the Raiders' radar. We'll use the NFL Mock Draft Database, which compiles rankings from analysts like Mel Kiper, Jordan Reed, and Matt Miller. Keep in mind, these rankings aren't always accurate. Once a top analyst calls a player a top 3 pick, others tend to echo it, whether it's true or not. If the Raiders hold the 6th overall pick, they have a lot to consider. Will Malcolm Kuntz return? If not, should they target a defensive end? What about quarterback? Will they need to go after Shedeur Sanders or another top prospect? And if they secure a quarterback early, do they wait until the 2nd round to address the defensive line? Some believe this draft class has one of the strongest defensive tackle groups in years. Mason Graham is the top-rated defensive tackle on many boards, but is he worth the 6th pick? Personally, I'm not as high on him as others. Some call him a top 3 talent, but I don't see the same elite pass rush skills that guys like Jalen Carter had coming out of college. Graham is powerful, but in the NFL, strength alone isn't enough. Everyone is strong. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if he falls outside the top 10. If the Raiders wait until the 2nd round for a defensive tackle, one name stands out: Deion Walker, Kentucky. Walker is a perfect fit for what the Raiders need. With Christian Wilkins locked in as the 3 technique, the team needs a dominant nose tackle, someone strong enough to take on double teams from centers and guards. Walker fits that mold. If he's available in the 2nd round, the Raiders should take him without hesitation. However, there's a chance Walker goes in the top 20 to 25 picks. If that happens, there are other options. Alfred Collins, Texas, and Cam Jackson, Florida, are 2 intriguing prospects. Jackson, in particular, is a massive 6 feet 5 inches, 345 pounds, defensive tackle with surprising quickness and pass rush skills. He could be a steal in the 2nd or 3rd round. Beyond those names, the draft also features some smaller DTS who could be available later. Omar Lott, Tennessee, and Anas Peebles are 2 highly skilled interior linemen, but at just 6 feet tall, their size may push them down the draft board. Peebles, in particular, had an impressive Senior Bowl, consistently winning reps. However, he struggled against the run, which raises concerns about his fit in the NFL. If the Raiders are looking for a late-round sleeper, Peebles in the 4th round could be worth a shot. If you're playing on the inside as a defensive tackle, strength is a must. Some schemes, like a base 3 to 4, require you to take on double teams more often. That's why teams need dominant interior linemen. One player I'd love to see with the Raiders is Deion Walker. If he's available in the 2nd round, I'd take him without hesitation. But there's a real chance he goes in the top 20 to 25 picks. He fits well with what the Raiders need, even if they bring back Adam Butler. Butler is more like Christian Wilkins, while Walker brings something different: size, power, and the ability to disrupt plays inside. With John Jenkins hitting free agency and not performing well last season, the Raiders must target a big interior defensive lineman. Deone Walker would be a perfect fit. Other big names in this draft include Alfred Collins, Texas, a rising prospect with strong upside. Cam Jackson, Florida, 6 feet 4 inches to 6 feet 5 inches, 345 pounds, but surprisingly fast with solid pass rush technique. Omar Lott, Tennessee, and Annis Peebles, talented, but on the smaller side, about 6 feet 0 inches, which could hurt their draft stock. Peebles, in particular, had impressive tape from the Senior Bowl, consistently winning reps. However, he struggled against the run, which raises concerns about his fit at the next level. If the Raiders land him in the 4th round, he'd be worth a shot. A few more names at the top of the draft. Walter Nolan. He's getting a lot of hype, but I wouldn't take him at number 6 overall. Even at pick 22, I wouldn't feel great about it. He has potential, but might not provide the immediate impact the Raiders need. Derek Harmon, Oregon. A transfer who played just 1 year at Oregon but showed elite potential. He's strong, has great pass rush moves, and reminds me of Christian Wilkins. If he's available in the 2nd round, I'd take him in a heartbeat. This year's defensive tackle class could rival the legendary 2019 class that produced Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, Jeffrey Simmons, and Quinnen Williams. We might see 7 to 8 defensive tackles go in the 1st round. Another name to watch is Darius Alexander, Toledo. He flashed a lot at Toledo and stood out at the Senior Bowl. Keep an eye on him. He could be a steal in the later rounds. One name to watch is Junior Tanu, who had a solid showing at the Hula Bowl and was later invited to the Senior Bowl. He held his own against top competition, but the Senior Bowl is packed with talent, making it harder to stand out. This happens often. Some players perform well but don't generate much buzz on social media. Annis Peebles had a strong Senior Bowl, yet his name didn't trend much. The same goes for Cam Jackson, who put together a solid performance but didn't get much attention. Jordan Phillips had a great showing at the Shrine Bowl and is another name to keep an eye on. This defensive tackle class is absolutely stacked. As the Raiders evaluate their roster, they must focus on adding depth to the defensive line. Adam Butler may not return, and even with Christian Wilkins on board, the Raiders should consider drafting 2 defensive tackles. Past draft mistakes and moving forward. Former GM Dave Ziegler made several costly mistakes in the draft. He passed on Jalen Carter, drafted the wrong Byron Young, and missed on Neil Farrell Jr. along with other defensive linemen. The new front office, led by John Spy, must get this draft right. With so much talent available, they can't afford to miss again. Yes, the Raiders need a quarterback, but defensive tackle should be a priority. Even if Butler returns, the team must keep building strength in the trenches. A dominant defensive line can change games, and if the Raiders want to compete for a Super Bowl in the next 3 to 5 years, this is the path to take. Big news out of Las Vegas. Champ Kelly and the Raiders have parted ways. According to Tom Pelissero, the split was a mutual decision, but let's be real. This was John Spytek cutting ties. Kelly was still under contract and hadn't landed a GM job elsewhere, so this wasn't about him leaving for a better opportunity. Spytek simply wanted to bring in his own guy. Spytek's approach and what it means for the Raiders. Spytek's front office style mirrors what he did with the Buccaneers. He wasn't their GM, but played a major role in drafting key players. The Buccaneers' current GM empowered his staff to make big decisions, and it looks like Spytek will do the same in Las Vegas. Whoever he hires as assistant GM will likely have a lot of power, which could explain why Kelly was let go. Spytek wants someone he trusts to shape the Raiders' roster the way he envisions. What's next? Free agency or draft? The biggest question now is what Spytek's QB strategy will be. The Buccaneers drafted Jameis Winston, but later turned to free agents like Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield. Will the Raiders draft a quarterback at number 1, 6, or will they sign a veteran and use that pick to strengthen the roster? If they go the free agency route, that 6th pick could be used on a top-tier defensive player instead of a developmental QB, which, let's be honest, rarely works out. A crucial offseason ahead, Spytek's decisions in the coming months will shape the future of the franchise. Will he follow Tampa Bay's blueprint, or will he build through the draft? Either way, big changes are coming to the Raiders.